Polluted air, high AQI levels, flash floods. This is all that we've been talking about in the last couple of months. There's no denying the fact that climate change is here. But can we really fight it? How can we bring and build sustainable cities? And how can we reduce pollution and fight for our right to clean air? We have just the expert with us in the podcast today, Mr. Madhav Pai, who's the CEO of WRI, World Resources Institute India, joining us today. He's a thinker, practitioner who's been working for decades in the climate change field in terms of energy transition and sustainable development and urban infrastructure as well. Mr. Pai, thank you so much for joining us here on the Climate Clock podcast, where we discuss everything about sustainability and climate change. And the first question, of course, that all of us have been talking about, closer to winters, Delhi, Mumbai, talking about higher AQI levels. These cities, they come into focus because how big the impact is. But what really causes it during winters, especially in Mumbai? We've been seeing it happening in just last 2 years. Is there no cure to it? And if there is it a long-term cure that we have?
Thanks for inviting me to this conversation. See, we only talk about it in the winters, right? Air pollution is a constant problem. Why we are seeing this spike in Mumbai in these months is because of geological, meteorological, topological conditions, right? Right after monsoon, certain things happen to pressure, etc., that trap the sort of air pollution in and around Mumbai, and so we see these elevated numbers. It's not that we are at 50 or less than 50 all around the year. We are around 100, so it's still bad, right? So I think problems like air pollution or even climate, needs a slightly long-term perspective of addressing it. You can't only try to deal with it when there is a big spike in the month of November, and then by December everybody has forgotten about it. We need long-term to set up the institutions, the processes, the procedures to be able to tackle the sources of pollution that are there. So tackling the sources of pollution, and if we just talk about Mumbai, we have to systematically tackle the sources of pollution. Right? Construction, has been is a big source. There are 11,000 sites of private buildings in construction in Mumbai today. We are building 330 kilometers of metro in various stages, MTHL, coastal road, bullet train. So this is unprecedented construction right now is happening in the city. Of course, it will tremendously improve our lives when some of this becomes a reality. But it doesn't mean that we have to live this, right? We should adopt clean construction practices. We need to manage our construction sites better. It's not only the builders, it's also our government, the metro contractors and all of that. And it's possible to do it, right? I'll just give you one or two small examples, right? A truck enters a site every day, right? The tires of the truck should be washed every time it leaves the site. Right, so that it doesn't then keep spreading the dust. Now you need a tire cleaner, right? This is a very simple technology. It's like not even it's equipment, right? But there is not a good provider that provides the tire cleaner. Now, if similarly, the cutting happens, right? The cutter, the kind of masks he wears, if you watch him, he wears a flimsy mask. Can't we give him better mask? So there are at least 50 of these simple equipment that every site can make sure that they are using high quality products to make sure that, so this is an example of how you have to source by source solve this problem. And so one of the things we're trying to do with BMC is saying, okay, this year, let's try to create some kind of a platform where we can produce better products, technologies, equipment on construction site management. This year, you ask them to voluntarily do it. Maybe in a year or two, you need to start enforcement and start fining. But this is the example, right? Similarly, now transport. Two-wheelers have been really on the rise in Mumbai. Mumbai usually didn't have many two-wheelers. Two-wheelers have gone from 19 lakhs to 27 lakhs in the last 5 years.
Okay.
Two things have happened, right? One, delivery, right? All of us. So it's not to blame anybody. All of us are very responsible.
Quick delivery.
So delivery is one. The other thing is, as COVID happened and a lot of people bought these two-wheelers, from a security perspective and all of that. So we have seen a rapid increase in two-wheelers. Their emissions matter.
Mm.
So again, I think so transport is another
Mm.
source, waste is another
Mm.
source. So I think source by source you need to tackle.
Okay.
Mm.
So the biggest source right now in Mumbai itself is construction, and for Delhi, we talk about that stubble burning that happens
So
every.
stubble burning happens in a month where it goes. So Delhi has actually done very well. Okay, if you look at what Delhi has managed to do in the last 5 years, has been very good, very systematically. It took them a little while, but now they've systematically established institutions at the city level, at the Delhi level, at the NCR level. It's talking about relocating power plants. It's talking. So if you look at how Delhi has progressed, it has done very well. So, Delhi, what used to happen is very bad months, 400 plus 400 from stubble burning, I mean, that is disaster, right? So now this 400 at least they have tackled very well. This 400 separately we are trying to tackle with working with farmers in Punjab and Haryana. Similarly, in Mumbai, we need this systematic effort. It's not just Mumbai, right? All of the industry in the MMR, they are all supposed to use natural gas for all of their industry processes. But natural gas prices have been up,
Yeah.
so they are using other fuel sources. So all of that adds up to the other thing is, as we have Mumbai was lucky for many years. We used to have the sea clear, right? But now apparently, and again, I don't have very concrete evidence on this, but because of climate change, they are saying that the wind speeds have come down. So the air pollution that used to clear, it's not that we were not producing the air pollution. It was getting cleared. Today it's not getting cleared. And now we are suddenly wanting to address it. But as a city, we have a power plant, we have a refinery, we have a chemical factory all inside the city. At some point of time, if we are really to tackle, we have to think about relocating these as well. These are not, so I think what I'm saying is we need a long-term plan. We need a what we call an airshed level institution that is working, and we need to go source by source. In 10 years, we'll clean up the air. But
So
we
we
have
are not too late to be cleaning there.
not at all, because we are building in an unprecedented manner also. But we have to not do short-term measures, saying that Abhi, there is a spike this month, so let's all talk air pollution and then do some things, put some smog towers. That's not going to solve the problem.
So you are in conversation, BMC, as you just told me. Are they taking those measures up after the UN cry that we have seen? There is a recent advisory where they have asked, private builders to shut construction for a bit. As you said, no short-term measures. Are they looking at long-term measures?
Of course. So they have been, since last year, they have been trying to set up these SOPs, right? For builders. They have, interacting with CREDA and NAREDCO, some of the associations. There is an SOP now on what these construction sites should do. So what I'm saying is, so they have done the first round. What I'm saying is 1 year they should do this. Now try to help solve some of the problems. At some point, they need to become much more stricter and start enforcing and levying fines if somebody is not there. They haven't gotten there, but I think that's sort of, in subsequent years, I think that needs to be done.
This question is something that I've seen people discussing within themselves, that we have right to clean air. But when we are not getting it because whatever construction is happening, because that's the first thing that everyone in the city is talking about. Can they do anything about it? They're like, who can we go to and complain? Is there a remedy available for that?
See, I think I think it's important to raise the issue. I think if you see, even compared to last year, this year the air pollution conversation in Mumbai is bigger, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important for citizens to be aware, to raise the issue, but also remember that some of these challenges are, again, they're not going to be overnight. I think it's important for them to raise the issue, to build the pressure, but they'll not be. On the other hand, you also have to do what needs to be done, right? Are you taking public transport? Are you using an electric vehicle? Are you making sure trash is not being burnt, right? Are you, all of us, so there's a lot of measures also that can be done at the RWA level, at the ward level. Are we measuring that construction activities are better managed? Are we complaining when we are seeing somebody is not doing it? So I think both sides, they should, I think there is full right. I think what you're saying, they have the right. They should raise the issues. raise them in the right manner, and we should try to be as constructive as possible in trying to solve this.
So, just last question on Mumbai. How do Mumbaikars travel? Do we have a split here in terms of numbers?
Of course, Mumbai, if there are 100 people in Mumbai, 55 people out of 100 walk.
Wow.
Okay. And it's hard to, but think about everybody who works in my house, probably your house, our houses, they're all coming on foot, right? It's the person, the lady who comes to work in your house, lady or man, your security guard. Most of these people are walking. Out of the remaining 45%, half of them take the train.
Okay.
That another 10-12% take the bus. 3-4% people use the car, another 5-6% use two-wheelers, another 5-6% use taxis and rickshaws and all of that. So yeah, Mumbai actually is very blessed. We are a public transport city. We are building another 330 kilometers of public transport. I think the thing we need to do is really improve the walking environment for all of us, right? It is an but what you have to understand, right? It's easy to say this, but space is limited. It's the same space that is used for people walking. It's the same place that people want to park their cars. It's the same place where people want to sell their goods, right? So how do we actually, so parking, one of the things that we have to do, which is the hardest problem to solve, we need to take away all on-street parking in the city.
Oh my God, where will people park?
There is enough parking now built.
People need to use that.
See, it's a choice, right? You can't want to park on the street and want space to walk. So these are choices. We have to make these choices. We will never be able to improve the walking environment if we allow on-street parking. Now, this is a contestation. It's not that government will do. It's a political problem. If you will tomorrow not vote for someone who takes away the parking. So I think this is where awareness building is important. Making the right choices as a city becomes important, right? Do we want a walkable city? Then we have to give up on on-street parking. Then we have to walk the extra 300 meters to a private parking lot and keep there. Or, today, build an app, have somebody pick up your car and drive it to the park.
And let's hope parking also becomes more affordable, right? That's one of the things that
why should parking become affordable? Car driving in the city should not be affordable.
Oh, okay.
Of course, you have to pay. You have got free. You are, 3% of the people capture 90%, 95% of the space in the city. You already have a freebie. Now you want cheap parking. So that's the point. This is a choice we have to make, right? If we want a walkable, livable city, we have to pay what it costs to drive the car. Right? In New York, how many people are in New York? If you see last 15 years, they have narrowed the road lanes. Right? There is literally one lane in each direction.
They have a tax as well now to enter the city.
And the footpaths are 5 meters wide. We manage. I'll point to one of the projects that we were very involved with. If you go to Andheri Kurla Road now, between Sakinaka and there on the left side, the sidewalk is 5 meters wide.
Wow. Never seen that in Mumbai.
Please. Yeah, exactly. And people you start to see how people start to use it.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So I think distances are very short. If you think about it, Mumbai from the east coast to the west coast, right? Especially in the island cities, 4 kilometers wide, 4-5 kilometers. Anybody can walk this distance, right? If we make it a walking environment, then, we don't need any roads for cars. We need just streets where people can walk.
That's interesting. And I like the contrarian view that you put forth in front of me. Why should parking be affordable? We need to make driving less affordable so that people use more public transport. That's about how to tackle the issue of air pollution and other stuff. But the other issue that we are facing is this rapid climate change. We spoke about flash floods. We saw that in the northern part of the country. How can urban planning help here? What are some of the ways municipalities or local bodies can look at it?
So, since you talked about flash floods, I'll just, also from a simplistic explanation, talk about, how climate change, what is the kind of things climate change is, how climate change is impacting, for example, rains, right? So what we say is if ocean temperature, in our context, when sea surface temperature increases, there is more evaporation. Faster evaporation. So we are now seeing 1.1 degree increase in sea surface temperature. more evaporation means clouds become heavier.
Hmm.
Now these heavier clouds move faster.
Hmm.
They come crashing in the western ghats.
Hmm.
So you have flash floods in Konkan.
Hmm.
You have riverine flooding,
Hmm.
which is now destroying farmland.
Hmm.
In what we saw with the Krishna River and
Yeah.
the flash floods with Mahabaleshwar, and so you had flash floods in Chiplun. You had riverine flooding all along the Krishna River, and then a drought in Marathwada because the rain
Didn't.
just fell and never reached there. So you can see, just it is a very simplistic, I mean, there's
Hmm.
much more complicated science
Hmm.
to this, but it's a very simplistic understanding of how, because of this small increase in sea surface temperature, how it has impacted all of these three regions differently,
Hmm.
and how we need to then think about tackling it.
Hmm.
But coming back to your previous question,
Hmm.
see, one or two things. See, one is we are seeing that heat island effect, right? Like urbanization effect is almost 6 degrees higher land surface temperature. Okay.
Okay.
So, we did a study on along the Mumbai Metro Line
Hmm.
1. So, if you look at the average land surface temperature there, before the metro was built and after the metro was built, an average across 3 months, there is a 6-degree increase.
Wow.
Basically, what we have done, we widened from 2 lanes, Andheri Kurla Road from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. So then we also build this massive concrete structure.
Hmm.
Now, concrete absorbs heat
Hmm.
in the day
Hmm.
and it emits it at night, right? So
Okay.
even after the sun goes down, concrete is still emitting heat,
Hmm.
and that causes the higher temperature. That's why we need to do more greening.
Yeah.
Ideally we need to use materials. Probably concrete is not the best material wherever possible. In buildings, maybe in roads we still have to use concrete because
Hmm.
higher durability, but maybe in buildings now we are starting to use materials that are less emitting less
Hmm.
heat.
Hmm.
We are doing construction practices that do not require that much air conditioning. Of course, air conditioning, cool, it's a vicious circle. No, you put air conditioners, they give out heat, and then so I think some of these. So two things. One is, on in the long one, there is a huge opportunity in innovation around building construction
Hmm.
technologies for to for climate change. This is all, and that is a business opportunity. So
Hmm.
somebody needs to see this as a business opportunity and
Yeah.
see how we can create new materials, new methods, all of that are able to construct in a way that it is lowering the heat island
Hmm.
effect.
Hmm.
The other simpler first thing is, any open space today that is there in Mumbai, we have to see it as a place where we can reduce heat, extreme heat, where we can manage flooding. So you can increase greening, you can ensure water, like water harvesting or whatever, water at least percolating into the ground. So every small public space, right,
Hmm.
can be viewed as a opportunity. Every garden,
Hmm.
every corner where you have some open space, let's make sure it's not concrete, it's
Hmm.
mud.
Hmm.
It allows percolation.
Hmm.
It allows you will do some greening,
Hmm.
and that can help. And we have seen that some of these measures are able to substantially help. One of the small projects we have been doing recently, again in partnership with BMC,
Hmm.
is working with some municipal schools,
Hmm.
and we were trying to do vegetable gardens on the roofs. So students do it as part of their curriculum, but also that you put all of that greenery on the roof, automatically it keeps the building cooler.
Cooler. Yeah.
So these are small measures, but if these kind of measures are done across the city, then they can dramatically improve. They can help at least 20-30% of the problem.
Hmm.
They can help reduce. I'm not
Hmm.
saying it's all. Then of course flooding is the bigger
Hmm.
challenge, and for flooding, both we need to have very. This is where I think we also need very strong technical analysis
Hmm.
to understand how to deal with flooding. Mumbai is doing great. No other
Yeah.
city in India
That's
can
true.
deal with a 200 rainfall day. We are carrying on life as if nothing has happened. 200 rainfall day. So BMC actually has built excellent capacity over the last 10-15 years to deal with these rain events. But they're very uncertain. So we have to be prepared for worse, and we need to really make an effort to start to do. Yeah. Similarly on heat, no heat, we are not, like, I think little more preparation on how individuals can handle heat. Also people get sick, whether you stop, like you're saying, do we stop construction activity on extreme
Yeah.
heat days? Do
Yeah.
rickshaw drivers be told that don't drive between 1 and 4 because you have reached a temperature? So I think some of these sort of disaster response type of measures also can be developed on heat. I think it will be important.
And
So
it's very important to put out guidelines for that, because people are not mostly aware what
yeah.
to do when there's a heat stroke, right? So in that case, the biggest debate that goes on, you just mentioned that as well, that doesn't mean we stop creating infrastructure. That's not the way. If you're creating infrastructure for public transport, that will ultimately 5 to 10 years down the line will help us. There have been a lot of debates whether you should cut trees for metro construction, for metro shed, 10,000 things. But how can one ensure infrastructure development and at the same time lower emissions? And secondly, is urbanization the bigger problem, or do we see this happening in rural areas as well?
So one is, you know, our biggest problem as a nation, right, is going to be to create jobs.
Hmm.
Okay. We need, I mean, somebody was, I mean, just the number of jobs required are like in millions, right?
Hmm.
Like, they were saying there's a statistic that say that 1 million people turn 18 every year in India. Hmm? 1 million,
Hmm.
that's not even a big number. 100
Should
million
one,
people or something. Yeah.
yeah.
Point is, that's the number of new jobs you have to be.
Hmm.
Mumbai needs like 500,000 new jobs every year,
Hmm.
right? So, and the way the current economy is designed, right? There is a need to create infrastructure. There is a need to find ways in which we create jobs.
Hmm.
So, I think that is the primary sort of
Hmm.
objective where we are able to create livelihoods for people,
Hmm.
right? Now, how do we do it in the context of climate change?
Correct.
Yeah, and we do. Yeah, that is, I think, the problem to solve. It's
Yeah.
not whether urbanization of good is. It's about solving this. It's
Issue.
about how
Yeah.
do we create
Jobs to.
livelihoods for everybody so people can live good lives. And now, because climate change is a problem, we have to. And today we know that there are practices that are good for the economy, there are good for climate, and that are good for people, right?
Hmm.
We know that.
Hmm.
We just have, like an electric vehicle, like now the transition to. Now the challenge is the transition, right?
Hmm.
How do we plan the transition? How do we manage the transition? And that's where I think as much, how as much evidence based approaches we take, one is that, right, how do we sort of build the institutions that are able to. So second is, our hope, some amount of our hope has to be in technology.
Yeah.
And technology is going to bring us that next generation of battery, the next generation of cooling technology. These are the two big things that will, now hydrogen we are talking about in a big way. These are all real sort of things that
Hmm.
will help. And then on the third side, say some problems, like I said, right, whether it's about will require communities, right? So
Hmm.
as individuals we can do a few things, maybe 20%, 15%. IEA says, the International Energy Agency says that, through individual actions we can create a 10 to 15% reduction.
Hmm.
I still think community based actions, right?
Hmm.
Some things technology will solve, right? But still community based actions will be required, right? Like I said, whether to create that corner green space, and I think whether to make the right choices of taking public transport. I think so. What we need to do is that how do we make that movement? How do we allow those movements to come about? Will be also extremely critical, so that
And
there is enough distributed action. Big business will transform,
yeah.
and let's create the incentives. And of course, they are not doing it. They're, through regulation, through enforcement, you can force them. We can get more community action as well, and then individual action. So all three things will be
Hmm.
required for us
Hmm.
to be able to make this big transition to climate change.
The fact that there's a conversation happening around it actively says that, okay, we have made some we have made some action, or we have
Mm.
made some progress here, but a lot needs to be done. Two more questions before I let go of this interesting conversation. One, do you think there is any city in the country which is closer to being a sustainable city, or where you think that whatever you said is being implemented and we'll see the fruits in 2 to 3 years? And second, to achieve that level of sustainable cities or urban infrastructure in a sustainable way, which are the top 2 3 priorities that any authority or community should look at?
So, see, I wouldn't say there is one sustainable city, right? I think there are very good examples of things. Like I said, even in Mumbai today, right? If you are earning less than say 50,000 rupees a month, you have actually excellent public transport, right?
Hmm.
So, uh, I would say, for example, I always talk about Ahmedabad from a physical planning perspective. I think Ahmedabad is really well designed.
Hmm.
Uh, sh- you never have to travel very far.
Hmm.
It has a very good road network. You don't have to it's very connected.
Hmm.
That's a, but today we also talked about jobs. Today most jobs are getting created in places like Bangalore and Pune. So when then you talk about it from a gender security perspective. You talk about it from a, so again, so from different, if you talk about green space, in Delhi has the most green spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are good things
Hmm.
and there are things we can improve on.
Hmm.
And I think we have to highlight the good things and work on the,
Bad things.
but all of these things are good, right, that I
Hmm.
mentioned, right? A well designed road network, good public transport, lot of green spaces, economic opportunities. I think all of these things that we need to, when it comes to then, so that's sort of the answer. When you asked me the second, what should be the top
Hmm.
priority? See, there, what we are saying as an organization, this is also what we are saying as an organization. Cities, you can see there's a lot of things the city needs to do.
Hmm.
Also, in our context, in our Indian context, actually cities have very little fiscal authority.
Hmm.
Hmm? Means money is still controlled by state,
Hmm.
right? If you go to a lot of, London today has a lot more control on its own finances,
Hmm.
or New York has a lot more control on its own finances than a Mumbai has. Mumbai still relies on state government.
Hmm.
Mumbai is still better. Maybe if you go to a Nasik or a Solapur, they completely rely on a state
Hmm.
government. So one is, we need to empower our cities.
Hmm.
So to be able to, to be able to have the fiscal independence to decide for themselves,
Hmm.
right? This
Hmm.
is one problem.
Hmm.
So I think that is very important. So the third level of governance that we talk about has to happen, right? A
Hmm.
state has to give power to the city for city to act
Right.
independently. Very important. The second thing is, what cities can't do everything all at once.
Hmm.
So that's why we say that today is the age of what we call strategic planning.
Hmm.
So you pick a few things to do in
Hmm.
a short term. So in these 5 years, these are the five or three big things we will do, right?
Hmm.
So, and then, like for example, now we are building the metro, right?
Hmm.
Now, if we are investing,
Hmm.
and we will have invested, I would say somewhere close to, three, 300,000 crores to build this metro. If we have put this kind of money, how can we make the most of it,
Hmm.
right? Like I said, how can we improve the walking and
Hmm.
accessibility around
Hmm.
it? Can we make sure that all the new jobs that come,
Hmm.
right, is this office building
Hmm.
on a metro station,
Hmm.
next to a metro station?
Hmm.
Then you don't even have to walk, you can
Yeah.
literally sort of, so how can we then try to build more green spaces around the
Hmm.
metro? So if we are making some investments, let's make sure that we are making the most
Most
of those investments. Let's not try to do everything, because we
Hmm.
will never be able to do everything.
Hmm.
We have limited resources. So whatever resources we have, we need to make sure that we are able to drive much more integrated sort of urban projects, right? Like,
Hmm.
where we are also dealing with things like quality of life,
Hmm.
clean air. At the same time, how can we make sure that the metro we are building is resilient to climate change,
Correct.
right? So for me, these are so the fiscal discipline is important. The idea of doing few things but doing them well
Properly.
and using them, doing them well and using them as an entry point to do more change, right?
Correct.
So more, so then that those places where these projects go become much
Hmm.
better, much more livable. And of course, the third and sort of the final thing, that is that we need to build much more capacity of our city institutions, right?
Hmm.
So you need people who are specialized in
Hmm.
urban management, in
Hmm.
urban planning, in urban economy. We are missing that whole
Right.
sort of expertise. So
Hmm.
I think if you sort of make these the top three priorities, I think we will start to see a big transformation in our cities going
No,
forward.
I totally take your point. We don't understand how much an infrastructure change can improve your lives. As you said, better public transport would lead to lesser emissions. If we improve our communities, that would mean better management as well, and fiscal discipline. The most important, you need money to improve any life condition anyway. So it's been such an interesting chat. Thank you so much for throwing light on different aspects of climate change, something that we face daily, but we sometimes don't know what to do about it, right? So, Mr. Pai, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll take your leave, but stay tuned to Climate Clock podcast for all the updates related to sustainability and how you can make a difference when it comes to fighting climate change.